Hello, Narnach here. Welcome back to Path of Exile. We defeated the Warden last episode. Now, I'm aiming to defeat Merveil at the end of this episode. Or maybe somewhere in the middle. Depends a bit on how fast we go, how many distractions we get. And how things turn out. So, in between episodes I had a bit of a look at my gear. Most of the gear I have is reasonably on level. The exception was my previous gloves, which were at item level 38. Traded for something nice, did some crafting, fixed the sockets, and we got a nice upgrade. So we got more armor, more evasion, we got a bit more life. We focused on cold resistance, because without the gloves, cold resistance was the only elemental resistance that wasn't maxed. And as a bonus I added a bit of chaos resistance. So in Merciless we are now at 53% chaos resistance. I'm pretty excited about that. Because it means we actually have a chance of maxing out our chaos resistance by basically just getting one more item that has 20% chaos resist on it. Or 22 technically speaking. So we're getting somewhere. I have one more ring that I want to upgrade since that's in its 40s, 50s. And my amulet is also a bit outdated. And of course the sword I'm using is still the cruel tier of bleeding sword rather than, or actually no, it's the late normal tier. It's the small sword. And I don't have enough dexterity to equip the cruel tier just yet. Need 20 more dex, then we can equip it. So we'll need to fix that in the nearby future. But eventually things will work themselves out. Especially on the skill tree, we're gonna do a little bit of traveling into some areas that also have some dex nodes. So eventually those missing 20 points, they will work themselves out. Ow, I nearly got hit by a spike. Don't think it will damage you, but yeah, you never know. Spikes from the floor, they could end up piercing your feet. And then you're not as quick on your feet as you would want to be. Currently we are regenerating about 200 life per second on a life pool that's 2700, so in 13.5 seconds we go from no life to full life. Well, from one life to full life of course, because if you're at no life, you're not regenerating anything anymore. Guardian of the Mount, pretty tough bugger, but we can do without. Ooh, that's a torp. You don't find those very often. Where did he go? Where did he go? I think he died accidentally. So switching my gloves, I took a small damage penalty without the frenzy charges up. I used to be at 2600 damage, now I'm at 2500 damage. No, but I thought it was worth it to boost my life and my resistances and my armor and my evasion a little bit. Playing on hardcore after all. Survivability trumps a little bit of damage. Especially we're still in the range where our damage is just completely overpowered compared to the enemies, especially once we start generating some frenzy charges, which is just a TPS boost. Speaking of charges, we are with the next couple of levels and skill point quests. We are gonna boost our frenzy and evasion and endurance charge duration, and then we're gonna boost their count. There's two ways you can go about it. You can you can just spend 2 points towards one charge, then put 2 points towards the other. First point of course gives them a bit more duration, then the next point adds another maximum charge. Or, which is what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna increase their duration first, and then you add to the total number of charges. Since for me the biggest challenge is in keeping the charges up between fights. So I think in the end I gain more from just sustaining a pool of charges a bit longer rather than increasing the maximum. Also, that way I boost both of the charge types a bit earlier than I would. But So I think last time I did the math and turns out you need quite a bunch of kills to keep your charges up. Which is not an issue if there's mobs around, but in between packs, sometimes it's a bit of a challenge. And that's our first level. So, because we're relatively early in the episode, we're just gonna go for the all flame as well. So, let's see. Frenzy is pretty good for increasing our damage. On the other hand, endurance charges help us to stay alive even better. So we're gonna focus on that first. What's in the Artisan's box? Freezes me when activated, 4 additional items and 51% increased quantity. Stream of monsters, Costa Clouds. So we have a flask here that makes us immune to freezing. So if we pop that before we hit the box, we won't get frozen. So hit it, just walk away and murder everybody. Put the totem in the middle just to make it easier to deal with them. And that's that. 2 chisels and a bunch of whetstones and armor scraps. And even a glass blower's bubble. I always think that's a funny sounding word, a bubble. It sounds like a bubble, but you write it differently, pronounce it slightly differently, and there's a completely different meaning, but they're very close together, yet they're very far away. Yeah, I knew there was a yellow in there. I did see a yellow in there. And another one. And there is the shipwreck. I see it on the map. Okay, everybody. And then we go through. There's a fish reflector in there, which we're still unaffected by, which I'm surprised. I had expected more impact from the physical reflectors, to be honest. But I think right now, just doing a pretty massive amount of just base life regen, coupled with life leech. Ooh. Those are big, scary skeleton beasts. Especially when there's so many of them. Diamond scale, that's always crit. That's gonna be fun. Our base DPS just went up to 3700. Wanna check it again once we got multiple frenzy charges. That's 2. That's 4600. And that's 3 charges. 5300. We doubled our base DPS by gaining 3 charges and always critting. It's fun to just run around with a diamond thing every once in a while. Hello there, slave girl. Unfortunately, you didn't really make it through. So now we have to look for the ghost, for Captain Fairgraves. And then it's Merveil o'clock. Okay, so most of these enemies don't really feel like attacking me for some reason. They're just doing their own thing, looking a bit distracted. Might have something to do with the stone golem distracting them, but principle still applies. They're just ignoring me. So, once we get to the tougher maps, I think I'll be relieved that they're ignoring me. Because sometimes sustained attention by nasty enemies on maps, especially bosses, thinking museum maps, things like that, you could do without it. Okay, so I'll just go through here, grab the waypoint, pop back and explore from the other side. Because we do want to have a chat with Fairgraves. So I wonder how the Merveil fight's gonna unfold. I think on previous difficulties we didn't really have a lot of issues. On the other hand, she is capable of putting out quite some damage. But if you do get the additional elemental bosses, starting on cruel, but we were just so massively overpowered then that we didn't really notice. Maybe we are slightly more balanced now versus Merveil. We're not balanced at all versus regular mobs. That much is clear. That said, we're level 64, this is a 57 area. And now we do have pretty decent gear. That's the one thing you can say. Now, if you have traded for some gear, then it's gonna be slightly above your power level. I mean, you still need to be able to equip it. So. But you are gonna get stuff that's just more than if you would play solo self-found. Which is okay. No, trading is a core part of the game. And so, not trading, you are making the game more difficult for yourself. Hopefully intentionally. Let's kill these guys, maybe get some charges. Grace is just a dead man. Then we can just go to town. And have a little chat with the people. You are gonna give us a fluted bassinet. Sure. And we get a skill point. Excellent. I was looking for that. Let's hit the other button. So we grab this one. Now we're grabbing this one. Now both of our charges will last for 18% longer. So that means they're gonna last. I think 10 is the default. So gonna last for 12 seconds. Dump some currency in here. Then everything else just goes into the box. And we'll deal with it at some other time. Whatever. Time for Merveil. Yeah, because we are maxed out on prophecies. Okay, strong box, no enchantments, might as well just pop it. Yeah, you. Seething brine. So once we hit Act 4, just jumping ahead a little bit in time. Once we hit Act 4, of course we're gonna do another decent gear overhaul, just double checking that we have everything, seeing that we can maximize the amount of armor and evasion we have. Currently we are hovering at about 36 to 42%, and the endurance charges help us with the physical damage reduction. The fortify helps there as well. Fortify by itself just adds a bit of a percentage on top. If we're running around with all 4 endurance charges, that's pretty nice. Now you could make an argument for the frenzy charge bonus that you get from Act 2. There's multiple ideas you can have about that. Now you can go for the endurance charge, help Oak. Just as an extra defensive measure, you could help Kraton get yourself a frenzy charge and boost your offense. You see how effective it is to do more damage, and especially because we're leeching life, it's not a bad argument to make. It's definitely something that is worth to consider. Could help Armour get yourself just a skill point to just path more, eventually just turn it into life. You will defeat a bubbling gold that rises from the gold piles. Interesting. So that's near the end of the level. We'll encounter an interesting mob. I haven't had this prophecy yet, so I'm very curious about that. Oh, purple. Living blood. So we're gonna get a blood spawn. Yes, congealed blood. That's the other one I was talking about. And didn't even have the decency to drop something useful. Boo, freaking who. Oh, there are speed bumps anyway. Ooh, wow. Yeah, one flicker strike. Didn't see that one coming. Yeah, Act 4 just now probably once we have the dried lake unlocked, that's usually the thing. Now once we make it to the mines, then it's always a good time to just take a step in place and do your thing. Just upgrade your gear. Make sure that you are wearing just high-end gear. Just make sure that everything has a level 60 plus requirement, so to say. Then your stats are pretty decent. You... Wait, where are we going? No, this really is not it. Okay. And then once you start running maps, you can start looking for the items that have a requirement that are closer to level 70. And depending on each item, there are trade-offs to make. And there are different, so to say, optimal items you can go for in the end game. Most of the items, they're somewhere between 63 and 72, and it really depends on. Some things are just better, just absolutely better, all the stats are better. Other items have trade-offs, so especially for me, I'm using Armour and Evasion gear, which means there is going to be an endgame item that has equal Armour and equal Evasion, and there might be some that have different weights. And that's how it was for the Evasion and Energy Shield. Now that said, most of the gear has been equal Armour and Evasion, so I'm not entirely sure how it goes here. Could be that there's just only one absolutely best armor, which that's actually how I would prefer it. But with Evasion and Energy Shield, you definitely have your preferences that you can go for. Oh, there's a bridge here. Dead end. It's unusually twisty and windy today. With lots of dead ends and little pockets like this. Well, it's interesting. You don't see it every time, so that's always interesting. And then once we have our gear in a more optimal state, then we're gonna do maps and slowly advance through it. And I think I'm gonna take a slightly more cautious approach to mapping than I'm doing with my Frost character, and that's because my Frost character is in Standard League and we're in Hardcore. Okay, hello. I'd like to see something rise from the gold now. Pretty please. Or is that gonna be inside of Merveil's lair? Could be, could be. Let's go for that. Ah, yes. Cool. I approve. Here, have a totem. Totem can just defeat it. This is pretty nice. Oh, there's more. Haha. I like this prophecy. Frequency. Okay, you just have to pay a little bit of attention to what's happening here. Okay. That's the prophecy. Time to defeat Merveil. So totem is really nice for just dealing with adds, because it's a pretty wide AoE, and it just smashes indiscriminately. While I'm more focused because the crisscross, they are always forward facing rather than to the sides and backwards facing. And as you saw, the range on the Ancestral Warchief is pretty cool. Air of the Storm, Air of the Flame, There. Ah, Merveil teleported on top of the totem. That works. That works for me. Yeah, we can make some space here. And the blessed orbs keep falling. Okay, time to kick in the door. Or kick out the door. We have the waypoint, we have a nearly full inventory. So let's just empty our pockets. And then we're gonna walk to town. Especially because the opening area turned out to be prophecy free. Which is nice for a change. And this is all currency stuff, so we can just put the currency in the currency tab. I wonder how they're going to restructure the currency tab with the upcoming prophecy, with the upcoming expansion. Since there's going to be more types that deal with maps. Warmongers. Ooh, we will encounter and slay several warbands. That's interesting. And the essences, they probably won't get a spot there. They're just league specific. Based on the look so far, they look like an interesting thing that has the potential to really enrich the core game experience. Similar to... Yeah, because it's crafting on steroids. But I understand that it won't have currency tab support from the get-go, and might not even if they add it to the core game. That said, going back to, for example, the Talisman League, where you had rare mobs. Well, actually, not even rare mobs, but just mobs who were sometimes wearing a talisman that gave them some interesting superpowers in the map. And when you killed them, they dropped the talisman. That was also an interesting mechanic. No, the white talismans, they were always just sacrifice fodder for the stones. But some of the rares were really interesting. Then you got an interesting mix of stats. You got a built-in implicit mod that was just unique to the talisman. There were things with like bonuses to chaos damage, which you usually don't find anywhere. And they were corrupted, so what you found was what you got. And that made it interesting. Since you couldn't craft it, you just had to be lucky. And you ended up with a stash tab full of amulets as a result, because you could sacrifice them in order to perform rituals, to summon mobs with stronger talismans, all that good stuff. But I'm still wondering what would happen if they modified Talisman League so that every once in a while a monster would appear in the world. Just like a Rogue Exile, for example, that was wearing a talisman. That would give them superpowers, or the special powers at least. It would be tuned maybe a little bit better, and maybe the scaling across difficulty levels would be better, so that in normal they would appear less, and then the further you get into the game, the more often you see them and the more powerful they are, and just the damage as well. Because there was one that with the spikes that came from the floor, they were the bane of hardcore characters because they inflicted some kind of bleeding stacks on you that I don't think you could actually cure with poison, with flasks. But if you got attacked by one of those early on and you didn't realize it, then you could have had 20 stacks of them before you realized, and your life would just go boom, dead. Not fun. But if they tune that better, so that the damage would just not be as excessive, and you would maybe encounter the higher tier amulets as well, or maybe every once in a while there would be like a circle, one of those ritual stone circles with a boss in it that has an amulet, and they maybe just don't make them drop below blue. So you only have blues and yellows and uniques. Cut out the white ones since they're rubbish. And then you could potentially use them, and you can sacrifice them to get higher ones. That could be interesting. Or maybe have like the first Now in Cruel have the first tier start to appear, but once in Merciless you also get second tier, or you only get second tier amulets in Merciless, or maybe both, that might be better. So then it's easier to summon the third tier, and then once you got 5 of the amulets of the third tier, you can sacrifice them to summon Rigwald, the final boss there. But that's still something I think it could be interesting to add back. There's not a lot of modifications that would be needed to make that a fun mechanic. But no, they did add the prophecy in the valley will return in some form once the Atlas of Worlds is out. And I hope the Essence League, it looks like it's going to be really fun because it really makes rare crafting viable. As someone who plays, well, mostly self-found, I just buy some items, mostly rares, for trading. I trade to just buy stuff. I don't really sell stuff, I just buy stuff every once in a while. So essences will be really useful for me to just give a little tweak to useful items, to just make them better, or to maybe just find decent bases and essence craft something useful out of those. I hope that if that turns out to be indeed as fun as I hope it will be, that they add it to the core game as well. But that's going to be it for this episode. We made it to Act 2. So next episode we're going to go one way, episode after we're probably going to head the other way. We have to remember, we have to do the trial here. Actually the trials, there's going to be 2 trials of course. So it might take a little bit longer to get through Act 2 at this time, but it's going to be fun nonetheless. So thank you for watching. I'll see you again next time. Bye bye.